to all be inspired by what you see up there, and for you also to know how important friendships are. Yeah.
Bonnie, I love that about you. You just say it, that's it, done.
How about you, Diana? What do you feel like the film captures? Because you had offers before to turn your story into something big screen, right? What made this one the right one?
I was offered back in the 70s, and that was a deplorable experience. I came out here and sat at a Hollywood table, and they didn't speak to me, they spoke to each other. Hey, I know what, let's give her a couple of brothers, and then she'll be the athlete, and they won't be the athlete. And I just said, is there a flight back to New York anytime soon? But this was very different. Every person, you know, Bonnie and I come from the world of world-class sports, and all of a sudden, first of all, let's go back. Before this film was ever a script, you know, there was not a Netflix yet. This was just an idea from an independent producer, and Bonnie and I sat with him and we thought, if we could do our dream list of the actor who would play me, there wasn't a list, there was one, and it was Annette Bening.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, Andrew Mazzara called me and Bonnie one day, and he said, are you guys sitting down? And we thought, oh, that's it, it's not happening, all the funding is gonna go away, it's not, the movie's gonna be dead. He said, Annette Bening's in. And we hit the roof. We hit the roof. And we've hit it ever since, watching you. I've watched you play this role. Annette, I'd like to say, you know, it's me, but you played this role, and with ferocity and with unapologetic, you know, relentless, fierce focus, and it's what we all want for our lives, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah. And then it was just shortly after that, I think it was one day later, that Andrew called and said, are you sitting down? And we thought, that's it, Annette dropped out already. It's just a day later, and he said, no, Jodie Foster's in. So, you know, how can you go wrong, right?
Annette, for you, where did you start? Was it script first? Did you look into Diana's story beforehand? How did you kind of come to know?
I read the script, they sent me the script. I knew it was Jimmy Chin and Chai Vasarhelyi Chin, and so I knew their documentary work. This was their first narrative movie, but I knew their Free Solo, their great documentary film, and I knew that this was the first time they were going to make a narrative film. So that, I only knew that. I knew it was them, and I knew it was the script. So I read the script, and I was really, I think what really got me was the thing that I get when I watch the movie, which is I was also inspired. It was like, what is this? What? I mean, I had heard about Diana, and I used to hear you on NPR. Diana was a person that would do kind of opinion pieces, right, on NPR, weigh in on sports ethical issues, right? And there's a beautiful dog down here that we just love. Anyway, so yeah, so I just thought the story just blew my mind, and I just immediately jumped in and thought, yeah, I've got to, you know, it's one of those I knew immediately that I would want to do it.
How did you wrap your mind and possibly body around the swimming aspect?
Yeah, that I kind of underestimated. But you know, I've done that my whole life where I'm like, I'll just jump in and then I'll figure it out. And in some ways, you know, creatively, that's a good thing. I think we all kind of long for that experience, especially as we get older, to kind of go into the unknown and do something brand new. I mean, I was always in the water. I was in the water a lot as a kid. I was a scuba diver as a teenager in San Diego, which is, by the way, a terrible place to scuba dive. But whatever, that's another story. But I was a certified diver, so I've been in the ocean a lot, and I worked on the ocean, and I, you know, grew up in swimming pools because I grew up in San Diego, but I was never a swimmer. So, I think that was something that I really wanted as well, which was, how in the world am I going to do this? And I could have, backed out. I mean, once I decided I was going to do it, and then I got in the pool and I started working, I thought, what the hell am I thinking? What am I thinking? I'm 60, I'm now 65, so it was a few years ago. I was like, what am I thinking? So then I just went to work, and I thought, well, we can, if they need other people, we can fake it, whatever, we'll figure it out. And then I got really into the swimming, and I thoroughly enjoyed the swimming, and it's changed my life. I love to swim now. I'm addicted to swimming. And I began, I think my ego got involved too. It's like, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking do this. And my swim coach was like, you can do it, Annette. And Diana came over to my house to watch me swim. I was so nervous. Oh my God. I was like, Diana Nyad's at my house.
Were you able to decide when she came to visit you?
I was.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna let her come over. She can see me. She was like, oh, good job, Annette. You were very encouraging. She got in the pool with me. My coach was there too. I had my coach to back me up, in case Diana was like, wrong. My coach was awesome. I had an Olympic swimmer, Rada Owen, who's an amazing woman too. You guys know, these Olympic athletes. I haven't known very many, I don't know how many Olympic athletes. I've always watched the Olympics, right? And I love the mentality of the great athletes. So anyway, Rada came over, and she's 6 foot tall and still loves to swim too, which I think is a big thing because a lot of people get burned out. Yeah. But she didn't, and she was so patient with me, and she knew how not to overwork me too. So I'm gonna quit talking.
If I might say,
Please.
swimming, as you said, you were in the water. You were in San Diego. You had no fear around the water, but you weren't a lap swimmer. No. You weren't on a team. No. Annette did not have a freestyle, so Rada is the one who dived in with all the technique, but I don't care, to be the age of 60, which is when you started filming, 64, which is my age when I did the swim. To start as a swimmer and to look like that, and that swam every day for a year. And wow. she developed the muscularity of a swimmer. It was a true tour de force dedication.
Let's not talk about that. Let's
talk about something else.
Come on now. What about Annette?
Diana.
Yes. We'll talk about bombing. Well, yes, we have to get to bombing at some point.
It's fine.
I just wondered, from the film aspect.
We shot in a tank, so there are a number of these tanks all over the world where they've built. I'm sure some of you know about this. So this one is in the Dominican Republic, and it's a 70 meter by 70 meter tank, and it's built adjacent to the ocean. So they build a big ramp here, then the tank is here and the ocean is there, like an infinity. Yeah, so if I'm a camera and I'm shooting in that direction, I can make it look like it goes forever. And of course we had our boat that went back and forth. So we used the tank for a lot of that. We had an underwater photographer, a very famous guy named Pete Zuccarini, who's about 6'2", and then he has the longest flippers you've ever seen that are about this long. And he actually is one of those free diving photographers as well. So he has a team with him, and so he's got his main guy. So we're all in the water, we're all getting ready, they got the cameras on the crane or whatever, and they're shooting this way or whatever. And Pete, his assistant says, okay, hang on. So then Pete takes his breath, which is silent, by the way, because when you take a big breath, you don't actually have to make any sound. Makes this big breath, and then then he goes down. And so his assistant watches him, and he's like, okay, go. And then we start. Wow. And he would be, we did a lot that way. We also had our cinematographer, Claudio Miranda, built a camera that went along this little track on the edge of the platform. So he got down inside of it underwater and was shooting that way too. And then we did some drone stuff, of course. So we didn't get to do too much in the open ocean. It's technically almost impossible to shoot on the ocean, and there are many famous water movies that there's these stories about what a nightmare it is because you can't match it in the horizon and the sun and the changing of the weather, all of that.
Yeah.
So that's how we do it.
I love hearing about it, right? It's just, it worked for me as far as, it seemed like the ocean to me, and it's
There
excellent.
were a few visual effects.
Yes. But it's great that all the athletes that were involved, right? You have freedivers, you have, Jimmy is an elite athlete in his own. I wanted to ask you about the makeup and hair involved, because I always think, as someone who's melanin deficient, about the SPF when you're filming in the sun. What was that like for you? Was it a different type of makeup? Did you have to worry about that?
We did worry about that, and we just coated ourselves constantly, and there was sunscreen. Yeah, we focused on that a lot, and there are prosthetics in the movie. We had Julie Hewitt did the makeup, and she sort of designed the prosthetics, and we had some excellent prosthetic artists who came in and did the work. We had gradations of severity, because if you look at all the documentary footage of Diana and sort of the different stages and what it would do to her face. So we wanted to try to get that impression. We didn't want to overdo it, but you can see how what she actually went through and what she actually looked like. It was, so extreme. So we wanted to try to get that impression across. So we did do, we had very specific, like I said, levels of how tough it was.
Does Diana justice, I think, because again, we need to experience a little bit of what Diana endured and achieved
Together beforehand, when we were getting to know, when Jody and Jody is not here tonight, but she's here in spirit because we all love her so much. And when Diana and Bonnie were excited she did the movie, nobody was more excited than I was, because I knew what that meant, and I knew the gravity and the gravitas that she would bring. Also, we got on very well very quickly. I mean, she came over and kind of tested me out. She came to my house. She was interested in the movie. She hadn't agreed to do it yet. I didn't really know her, so I could tell she was like, what's she really like? So, no, she did. She was, but she has great ideas. She has great script ideas. She knows all about making movies from every point of view. She directs, and she's been in the business for 57 years, and she's 61. I mean, really, seriously, she has. And so she's kind of seen it all, done it all. She's a doll. And so we all kind of hung out quite a bit. Yeah. And also Jody would hang out with, they already knew each other, but not well. So Jody would hang out with Bonnie. Diana was very generous to me, spent a lot of time, and we talked very closely. So that was an enormous help that they were so open to us.
Yeah, I was surprised that you and Jody hadn't necessarily known each other or worked together before, because it's so believable, right? Like the friendship and the love between the characters and the real people. But I thought that was so nice.
We enjoyed watching them together. We would all get together, and then after, Jody and I would be like, oh yeah, did you see the thing that they did when she said that, and then she said that, and then she got coming in.
For you both, was there something that you appreciated about your own friendship in watching Annette and Jody?
I learned a few things that I do that I wasn't aware of.
Like what?
I'll never tell.
When we got to go to the set, so that was February, I guess, of 22, and Jody, as Annette says, we all got to know each other quite well before they ever went down to start shooting. And Jody came off the set; she had a little free time, so the three of us were walking. Annette was over there doing an interview a few yards away, and Jody had these necklaces under her T-shirt, and she, just walking, she casually pulled them out and put them out front. And Bonnie leaned in and she said, you know, that's odd. My father gave me a piece very similar to that. And Jody said, no shit, Bonnie. These are replicas of your necklace. Bonnie, that's what we're doing here. And then she pointed over to Annette, who was sitting over there wearing the clothes that I wear. And Jody said, you see Annette's hair? Do you think she wants to wear her hair? She's trying to be Diana. That's what we're doing. So, yeah.
I almost wish there had been a camera on that just to see Jodie Foster say, no shit, Bonnie. Tremendous. That's so great. I'm wondering, since, you know, there's so much with the water and like how meditative, and obviously the extreme sport of it is something different, but I'm wondering what your relationships with water is. Like, what is it now?
Well, Diana wrote this beautiful book that the movie is based on, and it's a great book, and I really recommend it. And it was, you know, recognized as being a great book when she put it out. And you're very eloquent about the water and about the experience, and this is when I can get kind of like emotional about it. But it's really true. And there's something about being a human being in the water, and especially in the ocean, because of course it's infinite. And so that part of what you did, that's the part where it enters into a sort of another level. And I feel like when you asked the first question about the movie, like what did the movie capture, I feel like there's a few moments in the movie for me, and I'm sure I'm biased, but when I watched it, there are a few moments where the movie kind of lifts, and it goes, the cinematic part of it really takes you into the experience, the more spiritual part of what Diana was doing. It was just beautiful. There's a number of great books about swimming, but that's a really good book, and she talks about, you know, her experience of being in the water, and, you know, just how you have a different sense of yourself on the planet. It's very beautiful.
Thank you so much. Your word infinitude. The last cottage Bonnie and I stayed in, we stayed in Key West. We trained in St. Martin. That was almost all the training, some in Mexico. But we'd get to Key West by early June, start waiting for weather and train. And the last cottage, I won't be able to quote it correctly, but it's a Pablo Neruda quote. There was a black and white photo of the ocean, and a woman was standing from the back, a black and white photo, hazy photo, and she's looking out. And the Pablo Neruda quote at the bottom says, "You won't believe me, but it sings, salt sings." And then it ends with, "And it receives a kiss from infinitude." So I have it a little bit wrong, but that's what Bonnie and I felt. We felt the inspiration to look out all the way across the horizon to forever and think of what this planet Earth is to us. It's a blue planet after all. And so I was always in love with the ocean from a child. Bonnie and I found that love affair with the ocean together, and then you swam it and expressed it for both of us.
Continuing on the theme of inspiration, if you had to give advice for someone that would like to maybe jump in the ocean and start a relationship with the water, what's your advice for getting to know the water? If people are fearful or kind of want to.
Well, it depends where, in what, which ocean. Just make sure there are no box jellyfish wherever you go.
And you know what? Clearly, it's not about that. Yes, it's all about swimming and the language and the activities of swimming, but it's about your dreams. Are you brave enough? Are you bold enough to chase your dreams? It has nothing to do with swimming. So go chase them.
Amen.
Thank you. Diana, do you have more? Do you have a new challenge on your list? Hopefully not as.
You know, well, it's difficult. You know, I often think, for instance, of Serena Williams. So Serena's retired, and who am I to judge as to how great her life is now, post-tennis, with children, husband, businesses, friends, all that. But I can pretty much guarantee she will never feel the high, the drama of playing the US Open at night in front of thousands of people with millions of others admiring her. So sports are difficult because You know, kind of the tragedy of sports is that you must retire young. It's the only profession. So that I got to have this sport again at the age of 64. And by the way, I do believe it's the only case in all of the annals of sport where the athlete, which in the beginning of Bonnie and my friendship was Bonnie. She was number 3 in the world on the pro racquetball tour, just a fierce player, and I was her coach. And now 35 years later, I became the athlete and Bonnie was the coach.
Can we see Bonnie on YouTube playing? Can we find her playing?
No idea.
We can Google it after this, just to see.
No, but she pick up any racket of any sort, and she's just a natural. She's a beauty with a racket.
I love that. You know, you've been with the film for a little bit. You've been talking about it. Wonderfully receptive audience. I feel such great energy from you all in this room. I'm wondering if you can kind of talk a little bit about, it's a slightly loaded question, but what's been kind of the best part of the experience so far, or what kind of has stuck with you? Or maybe what will.
Let me answer that.
Yes.
Because during the SAG strike, Annette, Jody, and Diana could not be at any of the festivals. We were sitting around about 6 months ago, and the strike was looming. And they were kind of chuckling and said, "Can you imagine if Bonnie has to represent us all?"
Things you liked about it, right? Talk about the things that you liked. She got her own car.
Listen, I'm still having a ball. I'm loving it. It's the only time in my life I'm ever going to get to do it. It's a completely new chapter. So, there's nothing to dislike about it.
Annette and Jody and I occasionally, and the writer, Julia Cox, we occasionally were brought in on a FaceTime at the end of these screenings that Bonnie was at. So nobody saw us, but we could watch.
But they would put us on FaceTime
So we could see, oh, there, look, the audience is cheering.
And we would see the Q&A where Bonnie was the star. And we would say, look at Bonnie, she's taken over. Bonnie would, like my name would be in like giant 40-foot letters. It's the name of the movie. I mean, how often do you get that above her? And somebody in the crowd would say, does Diana like the movie? And Bonnie would go like this. I think she does. I think she likes the movie. You had some good lines. You're good. But Bonnie calls me from London. There were the deep things representing the movie, which you did beautifully. But she would call me and say, Diana, I'm in London. I have my own driver. I said, oh, you mean the one who took you from the airport? She said, no, he stays downstairs 24/7. If I want to go out and get raspberry sorbet at 3 a.m, he's there for me. And I'm having a good time. I'm sorry you're not here, but I'm having a good time.
You deserve it. How about for you? Kind of a lasting, or right now, how you're feeling about the experience so far? Just like it's out in the world.
Yeah, it's a joy. It's a joy. You know, I'm lucky. I make a lot of different projects, and you know, sometimes things don't get noticed, and that's part of the job, and that's part of the craft. I mean, I love the movies that people haven't responded to, quite frankly, just as much. And so to have an experience where people do respond, and because it's on Netflix, I am hearing from people all over the world, friends of mine, that in a way that I don't think I've really experienced before. And that is so gratifying. I got a note from a guy today that I did a play with, maybe 15 years ago. And he just had seen it. And I could tell he really enjoyed it. So that's what it's all about. You know, I'm also a fan. I love movies. I love going to the movies. And I love, or at home, watching something and just being completely enamored of it or changed by it or moved. That's the most important thing, is moved. And I love that experience. I want that. And I feel like when I see something I really love, I do feel a little bit changed. I feel a little bit like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit different now than I was. And I've seen a lot of movies that I love this year. There's so many good movies this year, a wide variety from all over the world. And I was just on a plane, so I saw this little English movie that I had literally never heard of called The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Roy with Jim Broadbent and Penelope Wilton. And it's the most beautiful movie. And I'd never heard of it, and I just was on a plane, so I'm like, I love these actors, I'll check this out. And I was just sobbing on the plane. So, that's part of it, is you want people to enjoy it, it's great.
Yeah, this is such a special one, as you can now see from the people who made it, and that you all got to experience it.
Thank you.
We learned about you, we got to feel with you, and it's so inspiring. Anything else before any final words?